Almost all cultures know stories of children growing up with animals in the wilderness. In India, such a legend is becoming part of world literature. The legend of Mowgli, the wolf child. In 1894, Englishman Rudyard Kipling writes The Jungle Book. It will become his most famous book. Kipling was born in India. Mowgli's story probably would have never been written without Kipling's memories of the childhood in his old homeland. It's also the memory of a time when the English hold absolute rule over India, and the country is known as the jewel in the crown of the empire. Little Rudyard is usually accompanied by his servant Mita, who is much more to the boy than just an employee of his parents. Give me the first 6 years of a child's life, and you can have the rest. Kipling will write this in his autobiography several decades later. It is Mita who makes Rudyard familiar with India's old animal stories.
It was important to Rudyard to listen, but also to see these stories being acted out. Kipling later adopted this same technique of putting himself in the position of his characters.
At the time, it was considered courageous for Englishmen to leave their children in the care of an Indian, especially when this Indian belongs to one of the lower castes, like Mita does. Mita shows the boy their common homeland. Rudyard was born in Bombay in 1865. India's colourful pantheon is part of that as well. Kipling will later discount it as hocus pocus, but as a young boy, he enjoys its mysterious ceremonies. Completely unburdened by school or other obligations, the young Sahib experiences a colourful, magical world. A world that obeys its own laws, far removed from the strict rules of the British Empire. It's an adventurous life. Much of what Rudyard experiences with Mita, he will later incorporate into his stories as a writer. The colours and the diversity of India will play a big role in his books. However, with his 7th birthday, this carefree life comes to an abrupt end. In keeping with the usual customs at the time, the Kiplings send their children to boarding schools in England, all on their own. It's a traumatic end to a carefree childhood. Kipling will never forget his time in India, and he will never see Mita again.
Kipling probably escaped into a dream world to make his situation more bearable. And this dream world led to the wonderful creation of Mowgli.
Having grown up in a country where the word jangal originates, the Hindi word for jungle, Kipling writes stories about India's animals and about life in the wild. It's not merely a book of adventure stories, but also a kind of educational book about a strict order where everyone has their certain place, man and animal. There is the tiger, who is feared by all animals in the jungle because he sometimes breaks the peace, while Hearty the elephant, the strongest animal in the wilderness, tries to protect the solidarity among animals. The most important role, however, is played by the wolf pack that takes in Mowgli when a tiger kills his father and forces the frightened little boy to flee into the jungle. A family of wolves will protect him from all dangers from now on. And even though Mowgli feels at home with the animals, he keeps sneaking off to the humans to learn about them and their strange habits. Compared with the famous movie versions of the Jungle Book, the worlds of humans and animals are much more closely connected in Kipling's novel. The world of the humans fascinates the boy, but it also scares him because it's very different to the wilderness. Yet the wolves, his own family, tell Mowgli that he belongs in this other world and not in the jungle, because whether he likes it or not, he remains one of them, and so he will have to return to the humans. But that time has not yet come. Years will pass before the day of goodbye will arrive. The wolves see him as a brother in all but blood, as it says in the Jungle Book. The other animals call him a hairless wolf. Mowgli turns into the master of the jungle, yet with every year that passes, the cry, "What does a human have to do with us? Let him go home," grows louder among the animals. It's not only the animals that want him to leave. On one of his excursions, he meets a woman who claims to be his mother. She begs him to return to the village. However, his time in the jungle will shape Mowgli for the rest of his life. He will always remain a child of nature.
At the time those stories emerged, there was this desire to return to a primitive state without culture, and therefore without guilt and fear. Tarzan and Mowgli symbolize this desire pretty well.
The first chapter of the Jungle Book ends with, "The dawn was beginning to break when Mowgli went down the hillside alone to meet those mysterious things that are called men." Even though Mowgli will live among humans from now on, he will always be drawn back to the jungle. As another, less known story from the Jungle Book tells us, he will protect his family, the wolves, as a gamekeeper for the rest of his life. The Jungle Book shows us the effect that the memories and the childhood of one person can have. Kipling saw the first 7 years in India as the best time of his life. A life completely different from the one he later led in England, his forced homeland. A life close to a person he loved unconditionally who accepted him as he was. Kipling processed the most painful break of his life in The Jungle Book, his departure from the world of his childhood. Many present-day readers seem to sense this departure behind the adventures of Mowgli. And even though Kipling receives the Nobel Prize for his oeuvre in 1907, The Jungle Book provokes conflicting feelings in him throughout his life. Today, readers all over the world still enjoy the adventures of his hero, Mowgli. Like no other, he embodies the legend of the feral child, and with a happy ending at that.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife.